Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm very excited about this second session of mental health, series 2. We are going to focus on Generation Z, which is also called the Zoomers age. And also we are going to focus on millennials as well. So we are going to also stream this on Facebook. So give me a second as I make sure that it's well broadcasted on there. And a couple of minutes, and it's prepping. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead and share my screen so that we can all see what we are going to present today. All right, perfect. Can you all see my screen here? If you can give me a thumbs up. All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, again, thank you everyone that's joining us live on Zoom or live on Facebook. Today, we are going to focus on a very important topic here, which is mental health. It's the second of our series that we started this year. We are focusing on millennials and Generation Z. And this session is 100% free. And thanks to our partners that have made this session possible. Hakuna Matata Shop, thank you so much for partnering up with us. Lakida Homes Realty Group, and also Swahili Village. We really appreciate you for partnering up with us. Because of you, we are able to offer this session free of charge to everyone in our community. And just a little bit of the housekeeping rules on the agenda here. Today, we are going to be as open as possible. This mental health, mental illness has really robbed us of great leaders in our community. So we want to be as honest and as authentic as possible. We have our speakers here who are very ready to share their experiences on mental health and how they are able to also sustain their mental health. So if you have any questions, whatever question you have, please use the Q&A feature on there on Zoom. You can either ask anonymously or you can leave your names on there, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. If you're tuning in on Facebook, please share the session, invite some of your colleagues, your friends, and also like and comment because we want to make sure that this information reaches as many people as possible. On the agenda as well, we are going to briefly introduce what Men Impact Change is. We have a few new people that have joined us. They may not know what Men Impact Change is, what we do. So we are going to briefly introduce the organization. We are also going to introduce the Men Impact Change Mentor Point. We are going to recap a little bit about the Wellness Series 1, and then we are going to dive into the panel discussion. The takeaway from last session was the most important thing that we need to do in order to break the stigma of mental health is create a healthy and safe space for mental health conversation. And that is what Men Impact Change platform is going to do. As a matter of fact, we had planned other things. Most of you that are seasoned or members of Men Impact Change, you know our focus is always on entrepreneurship and leadership. But we had to do a detour a little bit and really focus on this conversation because, again, it's a very critical conversation to have. Also, access to mental health information and resources. We provided some of those resources via email. We are going to upload all of them on our website as well. And the good thing is a recording is also available for this session. So if you missed this session, you're very much welcome to send us an email, info@menimpactchange.org, and we'll be happy to send you a recording as well. All right, so Wellness Series 2, Mental Health, are focused on millennials and Gen Zs. A lot of people, and especially some of you speakers, when I reached out to you, you were wondering, am I a millennial? I don't know if I'm a millennial. So I wanted to kind of share a little bit what Gen Zs is and what millennials are. So Gen Zs, they are also called the Zoomers age, and they are born between 1997 to 2012. So that's ages 10 to 25. And millennials, anyone between 1981 to 1996, you're considered a millennial. So if you're 40 years old or 41 years old, you're also a millennial as well. So today's session, even though it says it's focusing on Gen Zs and millennials, we're really going to emphasize on Gen Zs. And I'm so happy because on the panel here, you're going to meet a Gen Z that will also share his own experiences with mental health. And this particular group has been called the most depressed generation. However, members of this group, they are more likely than any other generation to seek mental health counseling or therapy. And most of them, over 40%, have actually reported to have worked with mental health professionals. And according to a research that we did from Annie E. Casey Foundation, there are so many factors that have led this generation to be the most depressed generation. And some of them are race, ethnicity, politics, family asset ownership, socioeconomic status, student debt, technology and social media, and school shootings as well. So all these factors, the speakers will come in a little bit later in a couple of minutes from now. They are all going to dig deep into how some of the actionable steps that we can all take in order to really support this generation right here. And with that being said, Esther, you can take on and briefly mention what Men Impact Change is, our mission and our vision as well. You're on mute.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We are glad that you were able to join us. And I know each one of you is going to be impacted in some sort of way, because I'm sure each of you has experienced either mental illness or knows somebody that has struggled with mental illness. Our mission is a dynamic, multicultural 501c organization that was founded back in 2014, whose mission is to connect, to advocate for, honor, and educate the Black male while preparing young entrepreneurs through training and leadership development opportunities. Our vision is we want to bridge the economic gap through entrepreneurship, education, while building capable men and leaders of the next generation. We have some upcoming initiatives for this year, the 2022. The first one is we have the Men Impact Change Honor Ceremony. Be on the lookout for in your email to see when that is coming up. We usually hold it around November, so be on the lookout for that. The second initiative is M.I.C's Mentor Point, which this is one of the mentor points, which is the wellness. We had the first series and this is the second series. And then thirdly, we have the Black Boys Entrepreneurship Program. If you would like more information, please visit our website at www.menimpactchange.org. Please also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter at Men Impact Change. So M.I.C. Mentor Point. The Mentor Point is one of our key 2022 key objectives. This is our goal, to provide the young men with mentorship webinar sessions on relevant and timely topics.
Perfect.
We're gonna go, yeah, go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and set a poll. Sorry. We're gonna do a poll and I'm gonna hand it over to Ms. Sani.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Esther, for that. So we have some poll questions here. We are going to launch them real quick. If you can please take some time and answer some of those questions. Mostly the questions here, they're just a few questions, and they should have launched right now. The first question is, did you attend Wellness Series 1, that is Breaking the Stigma of Mental Health. Question 2, since the last session, have you used some of the mental health resources we provided? Question 3, are you a Gen Z, that is ages 10 to 25, or are you a parent or an educator of Gen Z? Question 4, are you a millennial, that is between ages 26 to 41? Are you based in Maryland? And how did you find out about today's session? Perfect, and I see the results are coming in. All right, so we see that 33% joined us the last time. So don't worry, we're going to send you a recording for that session. And question 2 here. All right, so we're about the mental health resources. 43% say that it's not applicable, mostly because you probably did not attend the session. We are also going to provide you with some of those resources at the end of the session. We see that most of the generation here is millennials. We have about 57% that consider themselves millennials. And we have 71% that are based in Maryland. And the last question, we see that, how did you find out about today's session? That's through the Men Impact Change email communication. Perfect. So those are the results right there. All right, thank you so much for participating in that poll. The next slide here is the last series of mental health is scheduled for April 7th. One of our teammates should share a link for you to register. The session is on sustaining a healthy lifestyle. We are actually going to have a yogi that's going to lead us on a meditation session. He's not a stranger. He has been on at Men Impact Change a few times before and led us on a meditation session. So we do want to really encourage our community to take the time and focus on some healthy lifestyles. Dr. Isaac will also be one of the speakers on that session as well. So please make sure that you register and join us. And as Esther mentioned, Men Impact Change is a nonprofit organization. We welcome you to consider having Men Impact Change as your charity of choice on Amazon Smile. The steps are very easy. We have step 1, step 2, and step 3 on here on the screen. Also consider donating by texting GIVE to 443-210-3293. All right, so what everyone has been waiting for, thank you so much for your patience in that little introduction. We do want to make sure that at least we introduce what Men Impact Change is, so that you are aware of the work that we've done. We were actually founded in 2014. And the platform is really to focus on breaking some of the cycles. For example, right now is mental health, but we mostly focus on entrepreneurship and leadership as well. So our speakers for today's session is what you can see right here on the screen. And I'm sure you've seen some of their bios that we've been sharing all across social media. So we're going to have Ducey Nyachai, who also goes by Coach Duce. He is the CEO of Nyachai Leadership Solutions International LLC. He is not a stranger. He is one of our past honorees, and he's also been a speaker as well a couple of times. So we honor you, Ducey, for always saying yes and coming back, to pass on the baton to the next generation and give back to this organization. We really appreciate you. So Ducey is going to serve as a facilitator along with Canel Tate, who recently joined us as an advisory committee member. He is actually a Gen Z, and he just graduated with mechanical engineering from Kennesaw State University. So I'm very, very excited to have you as well, Mr. Cannell. And Esther, of course, and I will be in the background moderating the chat and the Q&A and supporting this session. Esther also has been part of Men Impact Change for a couple of years now. She is an event coordinator by profession, and she also served on the advisory committee. Mr. Sadiq Ali, he's also not new. He's one of our former honorees. Unfortunately, he had an emergency and could not attend today. He did, really apologize, but he's always coming back, and hopefully next time, the next session, he's going to be part of on the panel as well. But he's a great partner. He's always really supportive. We know him, we love him. So we really honor him also for always coming back to pass on the baton. Mr. Dipo Adesina is also one of our former honorees. He's a 4-time author, co-founder of Gira Right. And as I said, he's also a past honoree. We have Ike Nanweli, who I don't know if he's on here. He was supposed to be on here. Hopefully he's gonna join us a little bit later. And we also have Dr. Isaac Adai. He is the Chief Strategy Officer, and he is the Chief Strategy Officer of Pivot Technology School, and he's also an author of Black Boy Fly. So we really appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time on a Thursday evening to come and share some of your knowledge and some of the information, your experiences on this very important topic. And with that said, I'm very happy to pass on the mic to our facilitator, Ms. Tanyan Ducey.
Sorry about it being unmuted. So just a heads up for everyone. Again, welcome. Sonny, thank you for introducing us. And it's been a privilege to serve with you and to serve you and the team over the years. Real quick, I just want to give a heads up that Carnell and I will be asking questions, one question at a time, just so that you're all aware. And Carnell's going to start off with the first question, and I'll go. And for all the panelists, we may ask follow-up questions specific to those individual questions. So Carnell, the stage is yours. Go ahead. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you for everyone for joining and getting involved and taking this step to talk about this topic that is somewhat been stigmatized over generations, and now is the time to make this more of a accessible issue. I know that me personally, I did not always have the most enlightened perspective on mental health. I never really understood what it was. And so to have an open mind or even curiosity about this topic is a wonderful thing. So I want to get us started first and foremost, and get a question to relay the introduction of mental health. So could someone, anyone who wants to answer this, what is the relationship between the mind, the body, and the brain? And how does this connect with mental health? Because when you talk about mental health, you have a set of assumptions, and there may be some misunderstandings as far as what that actually means. So who wants to take the floor on that question?
I don't mind jumping in. Can you all hear me clearly? I think that the mind and the body, or I know the mind and the body are very interconnected, and they're one in a sense. I've been reading a book recently called How to Do the Work, and it talks about how mental illness sometimes shows up as physical illness, or how physical illness can also impact your mental mind state. So the research has shown that these are interconnected systems, and a sound mind equals a sound body, and vice versa.
Right, and could you expound on how important this relationship is? Because should these things be considered separate, and how do we make sense of this relationship? Like the mind, the brain, they do different things in the body. So let's
Sure. You
deal
know,
with that.
in the society in which we live in the Western world, we view these as separate systems that are interdependent. But I believe that they are codependent, and science shows us at a physiological level that they do exist and have influence and impact on one another. And I advocate for a world where we understand how our mind impacts our body and how our body impacts our mind, right? If you think you're sick, you will feel sick. These are things that we know happen through research. When a person thinks that they can beat cancer, they beat cancer. When a person doesn't think that they can beat cancer, they often succumb to the disease, because the mind has the ability to will the body through its physical challenges or things that it may face. So they're very interconnected. We don't talk about that often, but if we understand that the mind impacts the body and vice versa, when we think about health, especially mental health, I think we'll approach it from a more holistic perspective, and then try to really understand how and why our mind influences the body the way it does.
Right, which is a powerful point, that when you talk about disease, right, and illness, so mental health, we are trying to combat illness, which is mental illness. Now, just because you have a bout with mental health doesn't mean that you are insane, which is, I think, the stigma that comes with this topic, right? Like, oh, I have mental illness, that means I must be crazy, right? Well, much like I think any other sickness or any other disease, just because you have some disease of, let's just say, like you get an infection, or you may have some sort of disorder with your digestive system or what have you, that doesn't mean that you're, let's just say, terminally ill, or that you have, you're going to be bedridden. So I think making that distinction is pretty powerful. So, Coach Ducey, you want to take the next one?
Yes, sir. Just real quick, is it possible to hear from the others on those other two questions? That first question, just from Deepo and.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Dr. Isaac said is very powerful. I often listen to like inspirational speakers and read a lot of books that deals with the mind. And one of the things that I recently heard is that we tend to value things that cost us money, and we tend not to value things that don't cost us money. Our mind doesn't cost us anything, but it's possibly the most valuable asset that we have. One of the, being a Christian, one of the scriptures that actually comes to my mind frequently is that, I think it's Proverbs 4:23 that says that be careful how you think, because your life is shaped by your thoughts. So we don't value our mind because society, we don't talk about the mind and being careful of what you feed your mind with. But when people realize that whatever you put into your mind will determine your reality, I think we will be more cautious of the types of music that we listen to, the types of movies that we watch, because those things affect our reality and what eventually happens in our lives.
That's powerful. And so I'm curious. I'm trying to be very cautious because of time, but like both of you have made some great points. And I keep hearing the whole illness from Dr. Isaac and then Deepo. brought up the things that we don't value. So I'm even thinking like, could it be avoidable? For example, are schools responsible for the reasons why there's mental health? Because they don't teach how to take care of your mind. It's, they teach you, they put things into your mind, but they don't teach you the power of the mind and
Yeah.
how to properly feed your mind. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to touch on schools because schools don't teach about, they don't teach about money. They don't teach about things that are really important in life. So that's another subject in itself. But I do think that even though schools don't teach about that, I think that parents do have that responsibility to educate their children about what the school system don't teach them. So for example, personally, I teach my children about God because they don't teach them in school. I teach my children about money because they don't teach them in school. And I teach my children about identity, who they are. So when you know who you are, and I think we'll get to some of those questions, it becomes very difficult for someone to try to put you into peer pressure and get you to do things that is contrary to who you are as a person.
That's good. That's good. Dr. Ike?
Hello, guys. Can you all hear me?
Yes, yes. Did you
Yep.
hear the question, the
Loud and
first
clear.
question?
Yeah, I wanted to answer. I just wanted to throw something into that point because it's a very dear point to my heart for numerous reasons. Through mentorship, I graduated from Howard University and I've mentored a lot of students from the year 2003 when I graduated, literally until like last year. So dealing with all these mentors, I have practically watched so many different phases because from 2003 when I graduated, that was when Facebook just began, right? And from 2003 till now, you've had Facebook, you've had TikTok, you've had YouTube, you have augmented reality, you have Oculus, and so many different things. And I'm basically a marketer now. I call myself a marketing engineer. Been doing this for about 20 years. And basically our job, what we've been doing over the past 2 decades is convincing people to do things and love things and buy things, right? And that does a lot with tapping into people's mind. That does a lot with tapping into the way they think, into their thought process. That does a lot into tapping into their mind share. What part of your brain thinks more about food? Then what part of your brain thinks more about clothes? And we have to literally break down that to understand different customers all around the world, because we do these projects all around the world, right? So we have to simplify the way the human brain is. The first thing I like to throw out about mental health is I actually don't like when we use the word illness and health towards it. Because not only is it an issue, it's an issue just like a lot of other issues in life that we don't tag along the word illness and health. When we tag along the word illness and health, we now strengthen the stigma of I don't want that, or I don't want to be around that, right? So for example, I'll throw something out. Jealousy, eating a lot of food, being addicted to McDonald's. There's so many different addictions out there. Some people are addicted to just their phone, their mobile device. Some people are addicted to driving. Some people don't know how to stay at home. They feel like they have to go out until they're totally exhausted, right? There's different addictions and issues in people's lives that we don't tag along illnesses with, because maybe they're feeling all right, or maybe they're not showing certain things that are scaring others. But with mental health, I feel like as Nigerian, I'll start off with the first point. My first point is tradition and culture. When you come from a country like Nigeria, tradition and culture plays a very big role up until you're about 19 to 25. You are forced to believe whatever your parents and your culture tells you, whether it's good or bad, right? This is literally the biggest problem from where I'm from. I'll give you a specific example. Men are raised in my culture to earn income and make money to support the family. Women are raised to be prepared to be married. So once a woman gets married to a man in my culture, her job is done. Give birth to kids and just maintain. Whether she has a job or not, whether she has a passion or not, whether she's happy or not, is nobody's priority anymore. Nobody cares about that anymore. She can't go back to her parents and be like, Mom, Dad, I'm not very happy with my life. They're like, what are you talking about? You have 3 beautiful children. You have a husband that's paying all the bills. Like, what's wrong with your life? That's how our parents think. Men, on the other hand, once a Nigerian man is working with ExxonMobil, Accenture, Booz Allen, getting $135,000 a year, if he just wanted to be a chef and chase that passion, everybody in our culture would think he's wrong and he's dumb. If he wanted to be an artist, I can see some Nigerian guys out here, Deepo. If you told your mom and dad you wanted to be a poet, they're gonna be like, what? Are you crazy? So my whole thing is, when you look at that pressure already, up until you're cultivating years of like 25 years old, a seed has blossomed to an oak tree with the way you think, the things you believe, the way your mind curves, the way you make decisions, the way you educate or miseducate yourself, the things you allow yourself to absorb versus things you push away, which is why a lot of Africans sometimes would rather not want to learn about something and not know anything about it than learn the truth about it, right? So what's happening now, it all starts with your 0 years old to 25, your formidable years. What seeds were planted in your brain that made your mind to be that way? Second point, technology, digitization, and the modern era of the world. When you really think about what's going on in TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Reels, stories, hashtags, tagging, unfriending, befriending, unfollowing, following, all these things are now feeding our self-esteem, our self-awareness, our self-love. People are judging themselves and their self-worth from their followers, from their online clout, even up to the age of 45. I personally know people that are even 50 that if they lost their entire Instagram account of 80, 90, or 100,000 followers, they'll get depressed. They'll genuinely get depressed and be at home and probably need medication because they feel like their whole life is gone. We have attached ourselves to so many different channels now to satisfy ourselves, to satisfy our self-esteem or our self-worth. And in my opinion, that is also adding to this problem. It's making people not focus on themselves and what they could become, and rather focus on themselves and what it looks like they are.
That's good. So
yes.
Oh no, I really love that perspective. So you brought up about the fact that illness, the stigma placed on mental health as an illness rather than looking at the broader perspective.
It's just what it is. It's just like how you guys think about math and English and French and Spanish. That's how we should treat our mental. Our mental is our brain.
True.
It's the it's our brain, but a lot of us in society now are looking at it like that thing over there that affects a few people. Everybody has a mental illness to some extent. Everybody has a mental capability to some extent. But the way we nurture and take care of it is very important and should be raised as a priority to everyone.
Yeah.
With all these things around us that could affect it. That's how I look at it.
Great point. I love these different perspectives coming even from all three of your backgrounds. I want to go to question 2. So research shows, and this is going to be a very powerful question. Research, don't worry, I'm not the one who came up with the questions. It was Sunny and her team. But research shows that white teens, male and female, tend to have a more positive outlook towards mental health, right? And a positive mental health. And they're more knowledgeable about their mental health than young men and women of color. So, and this is obviously from statistics. What can we do to change this? What are some things that can be done to shift this, where there's more awareness, not only in the area of mental health, but also that there's a positive outlook towards mental health for, I would say, young people of color, but just people of color generally?
That's a great question you asked. And I just wanted to say thank you for that question, because it goes back to the stigma, right? In our community, I'm Ghanaian, so a lot of everything the brother just said holds true for Ghanaians as well. But
Kenyans too.
right. And anyone from who has African ancestry and cultures related to that, we view mental health from a space of stigmatization, and it has been used against us because of systemic issues that exist, particularly in the Western world. The majority communities leverage mental health as a way to gain a leg up. In our communities, mental health is something that is used to discriminate against you and keep you down. If you go to PWIs, you'll find that many of the students on those campuses have mental health issues and they're medicated, and they get accommodation letters to their professors who basically say this student needs 2 extra hours to take this test because they have a mental issue. The same student that might be at a Black college, one would have never even been coached on how to handle that mental challenge, and it would limit them in some way. Whereas their white counterpart will leverage that and still go on to go be a managing director at some multi-million-dollar corporation. And I think it just goes back to how we view these things, but also how these things have been used against us. Our own mental health has been weaponized in a way where if you have a mental challenge and the police are called, you're likely to die if you're Black. Versus if you're white and the police are called and you have a mental issue, they're likely to get you the support that you need. These are just facts. These are things that are real. In our cultures, specifically in African cultures, we continuously perpetuate these stigmas around mental health by not having conversations, by not talking about it. We know we have people in our family that have certain mental illnesses. We don't talk about it. Oh, Uncle so-and-so, he's not correct. It's like, well, what does that mean? Let's have a conversation about what the person is dealing with. Let's get them the treatment and normalize that this is just a part of people. Everyone has some type of mental defect. And if you understand it early, you can harness it in a way where you can still be successful and it's not a handicap. But in our community, we look at these things as handicaps. And then society in a whole uses it against us.
That's good. That's good. Ike, Depot, and just I know we're moving. We're almost at 40 past. So if there it's going well, just want to make sure we all can get for more questions. Through more questions. So, Ike, Depot, you want to answer?
And Ducey, we have some really great comments on there if you want to read
Oh,
some
yeah.
of those comments there.
Excellent. Thank you so much. In the chat, right? All right, so let me just take a little pause and just share. Someone said, great networking. Eric, thank you so much for being part of the community today. Africans for Mental Health shared, true, we have to break down patriarchy as it pits genders against one another and purports a particular role for each gender. For example, men are socialized to go to work while women are socialized to take care of the home. So these are some things like they're giving practical ways to even kind of hopefully minimize those issues. Wayne says, I respect Ike's perspective. However, the use of illness is the distinguishing definition to alert the need to redress the person to a more healthy functional disposition. The work has to be in the educating of the masses and the use of the media to, I think, to remove the stigma. I appreciate that. I had to wrestle with the whole illness part because I was well, I had some dysfunctions growing up, my family background, divorce, and I was told I had attention deficit disorder, which is a whole different conversation. But like, I was considered someone who's unhealthy, who has an illness, who needs help. But really, I just needed people to listen, care, empathize, and just say, I hear you and mean it and love me. So yeah, great point. So okay, let me just go to question number 3. Question number 3, Cardinal. Go ahead.
Right, yes. So social media and technology has been known to intensify feelings of isolation and loneliness and levels of stress that often could be the cause of suicide. So what can be done to mitigate these risks of social media? And not just as not just in the context of stress and isolation and loneliness, but also mental health as far as the human element of it, right? The social element of social media. How can we still be social and be human and be self-aware and manage ourselves while also mitigating these effects?
Yeah. So I think one of the ways to address that is really for a person to understand who they are as a person. The biggest challenge we see today is that a lot of people are putting on a persona of who they are not on social media. So if you don't know who you are, your identity, what you've been called to do, your passion, your purpose, that purpose is very key. Then you start comparing yourself with someone who appears to be successful. And if we kind of look back at social media, a lot of things that we see on social media is not real. All right. A lot of what people do out there is not real. I happen to know because I see certain people portraying a certain lifestyle, and I'm thinking to myself, I know you. That's not who you are, but the rest of the world doesn't know that.
Right.
So someone who's not secured in their identity or who does not know what their purpose in life is, they see something like that in their mind, they're not making any progress. They're not successful because so-and-so is doing this. And we're talking about being real. I got caught up, or at least I started to get caught up in that mentality because a lot of my college friends that we graduated, highly successful. I mean, I thought I was doing pretty well, right? Until I start seeing what other people are doing. I'm like, man, like, what am I doing with my life? Until one day I just made up my mind, like, look, what makes me happy is pursuing my purpose. So we can try to fix all the things externally, but individually, if we don't come to the point where we understand who we are, what our purpose is, then we'll continue to get sucked into all this, what's going on social media, trying to keep up with the Joneses on social media. So I think the key underlying factor is understanding your purpose and pursuing your purpose so you don't get distracted by what other people are doing.
Deepo, can I ask a question in tandem with that? Because you are an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurs of color, obviously, because of systematic challenges, have to work double, triple as harder, right? And being that we're in a digital world, like, how do we navigate that? Or how does one as an entrepreneur navigate the authentic self, knowing like maybe you're not going to get you're gonna move. You're gonna move in the right timing, in God's timing. But at the same time, like there are people who are ahead of you, resource wise, opportunity wise, and so you're having people who are like, you know what, I need to kind of embellish, otherwise I'm not gonna move ahead because.
You gotta fake it till you make it.
Pardon?
But you gotta fake it till you make it.
Yeah, that fake it till you make it, because I know I've come from a place of struggle. I just really want to get. So, does that question make sense?
Deepo, go ahead. I'll say something after yours. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You can knock it off because I know we're working on time, so I want to just make sure that everybody gets a chance.
So when it comes to social media, this is also close to my heart because marketing is my first love, right? And I'm an old hag, I'm 40. And I've basically gone through 3 different eras of mediums changing. The pre-Facebook era, where it was literally Black Planet, High Five, MSN forums, AOL chats, You've Got Mail. Like I was literally online when it was You've Got Mail, right? When having an email address was like the equivalent of getting an invitation to the Grammys, right? Like making your first email address was like the best accomplishment of your life. So today, people are managing 5, 6, 7 handles. The biggest thing is when you look at the word social media, it comes from the word social medium. Social mediums have been around forever. Women coming together, having dinner parties, Tupperware parties. That was one of their social mediums. People coming together in the church groups, those were social media back then. In those eras, people were fake as well back then. So the problem today is that now the access, there's so many different platforms and there's so much instantaneous access compared to before. Like before you had to drive out to church and have the church meeting. Today, you can sit down in one place and access millions of people, millions of opinions about you, millions of opinions about that person, millions of people watching what you're doing, millions of people grading and judging your picture, all that stuff, right? Compared to before, you had to make your picture, go get your picture printed out and show people to judge it, right? So now, because of this instantaneousness, that's why it's actually much more rampant and dangerous today. Social media platforms have done a great job in the world, but also have a double-edged sword. They've helped a lot of entrepreneurs sell their dream, create their dream, take care of their kids, take care of their homes, make their companies eventually go public and live out their, things that they could not do. On the bad side, because of the instantaneousness and the large, diverse amount of opinions, judgments, characters, people that you don't know, 80,000 of them following you and calling you your friend, but they're not really your friends, gradually now start making you feel like your friends think this way about you. So going back to what Deepa said, when you see a man come out or a lady come out, dress up a certain way and pose a certain way for a picture, she's expecting a certain type of opinion or judgment to come back to her. If it doesn't come back properly, what happens? How does she take it? How does she feel about it? So going further deeper now, as a community of Blacks, Africans, individuals, men, women, I look at it as all of this also starts from your home, the way you were raised, the way you're trained, the way you're brought up, the way you educate yourself, the people you surround yourself with, the way you foster yourself with your religiousness or your spirituality, right? All that helps you love you or understand you. So you know what you need to put out or what you don't need to put out, what opinion can impact or affect you, because what opinion can impact or affect you, It's important to be there for a friend, not just live your life by yourself. If you have a friend you could look out for them, because sometimes people might have followers and fans, but they are alone. They're genuinely alone, even in this world where there's a lot of followers. So I look at it as much as we want to blame the social network platforms, because honestly and truthfully, all those executives in those platforms are doing things to make us more addicted to it. They're doing things to make us have a disadvantage towards them because we are actually their real product, not the ads. We are the product of Facebook. We are the product of Instagram and we're the product of TikTok. Our behaviors are the product, not the ads running. We are the real product. But if we all understand that and we strengthen ourselves or strengthen each other, I feel like that could be a starting point to helping people be truthful to themselves and eventually be truthful with the way they manage opinions that could lead to certain actions like depression or suicide.
And I just want to make a comment about just going off of the points of this experience that people have with social media. If you think about it, I'm not going to make any moral judgments about these companies. Like you said, it's a double-edged sword. It's neutral. It's like any sort of technology. But if you think about it, in my opinion, social media is two things. It's a spiritual experience, but a commercial product. What that means is this is everyone's life. This is your life. We all have our daily lives and ideas and beliefs and lifestyles that we're putting on display, But the thing about it is, it's a marketplace. So you are the seller. And who's buying? Your followers. Your followers are buying into your lifestyle and what you're putting out. And so it becomes this, you can imagine how incredibly competitive something like that is. And when you have a company that sells advertisements on a platform like this and uses that attention span to have advertisers promote their products through this sort of platform, you can see how this can become convoluted, in my opinion. So I think it's a lot deeper to look at what is being put into it and what you're getting out of it. And I think that's a key point that Dr. Ike was expounding on as well.
I think these are all really great perspectives, and to maybe just add a little bit of additional commentary to it, I would encourage everybody that is a millennial, I'm a millennial, I'm 40, or Gen Z to go and watch The Social Dilemma. I believe it may still be on Netflix, and it will give you a lot of context to how these platforms are built and what the motivation is for these platforms from a capitalist perspective. I think that's really important. I spent the past 10 years on college campuses teaching business students. And the thing that I realized the most with Gen Z and millennials is that they are struggling to exist in two worlds: the physical world that you and I all know, and the virtual world. And because of when I was born and how I was raised, I'm very comfortable in the physical world, and I'm not as attached to the virtual world. But what I found is that many of my students are more comfortable in the virtual world than they are in the physical world. And their identity is developed based on the virtual world. And we understand how challenged that is. And that leads to a lot of the mental issues that we see, because who they are is based on how they appear and how they exist in a virtual realm, and almost not even connected to who they are face to face, because it just does not matter. So a student can be sitting at a dinner, but unless they're engaging with the followers in this virtual medium, they're not at dinner. Versus I can go and sit at dinner and just have dinner and eat and not think about what's happening there. So I'm able to disassociate those two worlds. But I find that younger people struggle with that disassociation, and it influences their mental mind state.
Great points. So I want to, because we do have a few minutes, I want to get to the next question, which I'm going to kind of weave into all we've talked about, and specific to Gen Z. By the way, shout out to all the Gen Zers. If you are on, if you're on this, if you're an attendant in the event, okay, shout out to Carnell too. Any other Gen Zers who are here. First of all, we want to celebrate y'all because I think this is important to note. Gen Zers are undervalued and underestimated. That's part of the mental health issue. And then you also look at intersectionality, being black, being then even for women, young women of color, that's even they're undervalued and underestimated. For those who are here today who are making intentional decisions to grow and to learn how to deal with mental health from this, I want to celebrate them. In fact, most Gen Zers, as much as we want to, I don't want to say many people criticize them, they're getting help more than millennials and they're asking for help more than we are. We think as a millennial, we think we knew it all. But so I want to ask this question, real brief from each of you. So a lot of Gen Z are feeling stressed because there's what they really want to do and what society's telling them to do. And even in social media, right? Social media is dictating their life. So how do we navigate? And I want to look at it from the perspective of being a support system to help them be able to have a clear perspective on how to handle society, because it's not society's going to be society. So how do we help them, and specifically our brothers and sisters of color?
That's a great question. I'll just quickly say, for anyone that's a Gen Z or that's lost in this space, I'll share with you what I would share with students at the end of every semester. If you think about a butterfly's journey, it starts as a caterpillar, it goes into a cocoon, and then it finds its way and emerges as a butterfly. Many of our younger people are struggling with identity, with purpose, with understanding who they are. And so I advocate for them going into their cocoon, which may mean shutting out social media. It may mean shutting out your parents, your family's voices. It may mean associating yourself with a different peer group. You really have to get yourself isolated away from all of these external influences to get to the core of who you are. I've had to do that a number of times in my life. It's helped me thrive because we're fed so many messages from birth. Your thoughts are often not your own, but you're conditioning from a social perspective. So you have to uncondition your mind, isolate yourself, go into your cocoon so you can discover what your inner butterfly looks like and fly off and be great. That would be my advice.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very practical. Deepo, Ike, and then
Man, I think he said it all, man. There's nothing else to be said after that, man. Like,
love that.
honestly, yeah, that was excellent.
I mean, the only thing I can contribute to that, I have cousins that are Gen Zers now, and an example of one of their issues now is dating, right? I remember, like, I've been married for 10 years, and I got married when I was 32, when I was 30. And, you know, back in the day when you went out dating, it was different from when you go out dating now because of the way right now you don't need to go out to meet somebody. You can literally meet 100 different people while watching Netflix in your living room. You can be courting 5 different women while playing video games. So it's so we have to understand that what's very different from Gen Zers and their entire atmosphere and galaxy is extremely different from ours, even if it's just one generation away. Like there's things about their world that did not even exist in ours. And I feel like those are all different battles that are coming hard on them. So I have a cousin right now that's talking about, he's not moving out, he's 30, he's 20, he's 22 years old. And he's already, he's telling me he has a midlife crisis. He's telling me he's not moving out of the house until he makes $1 million in liquid. He's telling me stuff like he can't come out and be himself until he's driving this type of car or until he achieves this type of success. And this is a guy that's 22. I'm 40. And I'm like, the kind of success he's talking about, some of it I don't even have, right? So am I supposed to like move back? You know what I mean? Like, but the way he's thinking that way is because every single thing around him, friends, his immediate circle, the content he absorbs online that he's interested in, the things that he reads, the things he watches are all pushing that down their throats. So to second what Dr. Isaac is saying about the cocoon and being patient, they're not patient, right? So the question now becomes, because it's as much as I would love them, doctor, to be patient, but like they're living in an instantaneous world. They're living in a world where they swipe right and DoorDash delivers something to their door. They don't need to go to the grocery store. They don't need to go out and eat. Food comes to them. Groceries comes to them. Gas comes to you. Your laundry comes to and take care of. Like the only thing, your school is remote. I mean, when you really think about it, I don't even know what they're doing with their legs anymore. Like, do they even need legs? But they don't even need cars. Like one of them was arguing with me that they don't need cars compared to us. I remember getting a car was like the next level. You're now ready for life. They don't need cars. In Maryland, in the suburbs, they don't need cars. They can stay at home and Uber everywhere, get a scooter, Uber down the street, scooter down the street. So when you look at all the things in their real life environment, there's a lot more that's battling them. I think Gen Zers need more love than ever. They need more care than ever. We can't give up on Gen Zers. We have to try to use example to really help them as much as we can. In my case with my cousin, I try to use my example. I bring him out to have lunch with me and my wife, and we tell him real life stuff that he might face. And some of that actually makes him be like, oh, okay, you can meet a woman one day that could actually like you for up to 10 years? Are you serious? Like, he doesn't know that. He doesn't believe that. So
we're on to time. I'm so sorry.
So that's really just me wrapping
No,
that up.
this is so rich and like, oh, I think you really hit the nail on the head with the love of Gen Z. Sonny, go ahead.
Yes, that was a very, very powerful point. And I really liked what Dr. Isaac said about just going in your cocoon and really hibernating for a season. I remember before I founded Men Impact Change, I was 26 years old. But before that, I had to be alone for a couple of years. I had to be alone. I had to really shut down the world, shut down social media in order for me to really connect with my inner self. And also, I do want to also emphasize that it's okay not knowing your purpose, especially if you're around 21 to around 80 years old. If you don't know your purpose, which is also the cause of a lot of people really getting into depression or stress, it's okay because it's a process. So you have to be okay with that process of you really discovering yourself and getting to know who you really are. I really wanted to focus on Kanel because he is the only Gen Z on this platform. And I know, Kanel, when we spoke yesterday, you had some really great information as far as your experience with finding a therapist, and how you were able to really find a good match because you went to several therapists before you found a good match. So if you can speak to some of the Gen Zs on here about what made you get out there and find a therapist, and what process or where did you find a therapist, and how expensive was it, or did you pay? Some people may want to know that.
Right. Yes. So I think my first exposure, or at least thought, to therapy was, I would have these periods where I felt down, sad, didn't really know what it was. Really, I didn't really think much of it. I mean, I think all of us from time to time have periods where we experience that, but it was one of those things that it kept recurring. It wasn't an explanation like immediately. There may be a trigger that caused it, but it was more like frequent in this period of time. And so I'm like, there may be something here. I may need to, because I throughout my life have been interested in self-help, self-development, positive thinking, and mindset. And I've always been somebody who has had this interest and ability to have a high self-image of myself and high expectations for myself. So to keep coming back to this state was really odd for me, and I just didn't know what to do. I had no idea of how to really address it. So I was like, you know what? Let me just see what this therapy thing is about. So I went to my university, and when I first had a session, this is not to talk down upon the university itself or that person who was seeing me at first, but when I first went to the initial consultation, they evaluate you. They tell you, okay, like what's going on and how can we help you and everything like that. And I think when I first went in there, I didn't have a clear idea of where I wanted to go and what my goals were. And so the lady, she had a way of saying it where she was like, well, I appreciate your time. These sessions are reserved for people who have issues. And I was like, what do you mean people who have issues? I have an issue. And so I had to be a little bit persistent, and I went back and I went back to the front desk and I was like, hey, I never really got any help. Could we reschedule? And so I got another person to sit in front of, but this time I was more intentional with my reason for being there. And also I opened up with like how I was feeling, because it's kind of silly almost to think, at least in my mind at the time, the first session, to open up about being sad. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, that's kind of embarrassing or just, it's like, it sounds trivial, you know what I mean? Like, I guess coming from, my biases and my beliefs in the past or whatever. So I just didn't think that was something that I could open up and comfortably talk about in that first session. So I think the second time, I wanted to get some help. I really needed to get real, get serious, and also just open up about how I was feeling, and then how I imagined myself, or what I wanted to be like after going through these sessions. And so one of the things, or the three things that I wanted to do were I wanted to become more confident, more assertive, and more direct, because I just felt like that wasn't what I was doing. My behavior, that was not me at the time. And I wanted to create that for myself, because I knew that behavior was not, I wouldn't say normal, but healthy, right? It wasn't healthy because, not being confident, let's just say with your boss, could cause you to take on extra time, and you're working more and you're neglecting other areas in your life. And so there's different ways in which, mental health is not just these diseases that you see online, like, maybe that you may need a prescription for necessarily, but you could simply be like, hey, my boss is running over me, my parents, my sister, whoever. I don't seem to have a handle on my life. I don't have the confidence to speak up for myself, or be direct, be assertive. I don't feel like I'm capable of completing my work, or things like this, right? These could be issues that you're facing. And I think all of us face those issues, right? Or have faced those issues at one point. And having that clarity really helped my therapist, walk back some events that happened throughout the week, in which we could talk about and digest. Because sometimes I would walk out of a session, and you don't always walk out of a session feeling good. You don't walk out of a session feeling like you just got out of a mental massage, and you're just like, walking around with a halo. It's like, no, sometimes, like, after the sessions, there were some things that I had to wrestle with on the inside, because it was just uncomfortable. And I think the therapist, that's their job, is to take your situation and like reflect it back, so that you can actually sit with it and evaluate it, so that you can then deal with it yourself. And I think a lot of times there were some sessions where that I was not productive, because I did not come prepared. And what I mean by prepared is, I think the best thing that you can do, even if you have a therapist or not, in general, is just having a journal, right? Because think about it like this: like, when someone asks you, how are you doing? First thing, the blanket answer is good, I'm doing fine, blah, blah, blah. But if you're talking to somebody who's, you're more invested with, and you have a connection with, or you're more interested in, you may answer it more authentically. And if you are going through mental issues, and you haven't even written down, like, you don't even have an account of your day, your week, or how you've been moving through life, the different traumas that you're absorbing, you're likely to just answer that question the same way that you would with a complete stranger, right? And then you missed an opportunity to actually have that authentic connection with somebody. So I think it's the same.
And I'm very proud of you. I just needed for everyone, especially the Gen Zs that are tuning in, to really hear from you and hear that, the first session that you went was not really productive, but you did not give up. So it's very, very important for everyone to know that for our mental health, we also have to do some work, right? We have to know exactly where to seek help. And Kanel, yesterday you said there were very free resources in your school, some free resources in church, some resources that we are going to share as well. But in order for you to really find a good match, it does need also some bit of work, some bit of effort on your end as well. So we are coming to the end of this session. It's 8:09. We intended to end right on time, but this was very productive. It was very rich. And in case you have any additional questions there, I see Esther shared an email. You can always use that email and send us any additional questions that you have. But I do want to really appreciate our speakers tonight. Thank you so much, Deepo. Thank you so much, Dr. Isaac Nyandusi. It's a pleasure doing this with you again. Thank you, Ike. We really, really appreciate you for really sharing some of this information. And we are definitely going to send a link to the recording. And before we leave, we have just a few poll questions, just a few of them that I would like us to really, just a couple of questions here. So if you can please answer some of those poll questions so we can know how the session went. And also, one of our teammates also shared the link for the next session. Please register for a meditation session. The topic is sustaining a healthy lifestyle. All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much again. We really appreciate you. Any final thoughts, Dr. Isaac?
I would just say to anyone that was listening to this call to be encouraged and know that there are resources out there to support you, and you're not alone. And if you feel as though something isn't right mentally or physically, see someone and don't let shame or stigma keep you from being your whole self.
Perfect. Thank you. Deepo, I know you have to go. Any final thoughts before you leave?
Yeah, I think just the most important thing, I think Dr. Isaac also talked about this a little bit earlier, is understanding that you are a person, you have your own identity. And once you discover your identity, it's very, very tough for you to be influenced by what's going on in your external world. And that's the biggest thing. Just seek out your purpose and pursue it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Esther, I know you have been in the background. Thank you so much for moderating the chat. Do you have any final thoughts or any takeaway you'd like to share?
I would like to thank everybody for attending, and thank you so much for staying interactive in the chats. I have gone ahead and captured everything that was shared, and we will be meeting as a team and looking over and see what we missed. And then we can also maybe compile something to answer some of the questions that maybe were not answered in this session. But we're looking forward to having the other session that's coming up in April. I have put in the chat the next session. If you guys would go ahead and register so we can see you in the next session. But thank you everybody for taking the time to be here and to be interactive and share your input and insight. There were many gems that were shared, and we truly thank you.
Coach, and then Ike.
First of all, thank you to everyone, to all the panelists. I mean, I found myself growing, and even from Carnell as a Gen Zer, I find myself learning from each of you and the attendants. I just want to share something that I think very briefly is very important. Many of us have been to events like these, or some of us, it's the first time we've been to an event like this. Do not, and I'm being cautious because I don't want to come off judgmental or make assumptions, but for all of us, including myself, that this doesn't end up a motivational event where we're just getting hype. Find one thing that we can take from this event and take action on it. I've learned that's how we grow. We take one piece of action. If it's, all right, I'm setting a social media agenda on how and when I'm going to be on, whatever that is, or how I'm going to, Sonny messed me up 2 days ago when we had a conversation and she asked me, well, how come you haven't reached out to get a counselor yet? And, all these, I was like, okay, now is the time to do that. So, motivation doesn't last. We should be pursuing transformation, and transformation moves through action. So,
absolutely, thank you so much, Ike.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I know it was kind of last minute when Sonia invited me to this, and I'm happy also to be part of a panel that was not just doctors. I've been in some situations like this before, and it was either doctors or patients. It was always either doctors or patients. And I'm here, and You know, it's not feeling like any of us is one of those two solidly. Like we're just different people from different parts of life. And that shows, which is what I believe, that this is an issue that affects and impacts every aspect of life. It's not just a medical thing. It's a human issue. It's not a medical issue, it's a human issue. You know, it's affecting husbands, wives, kids out there. It's affecting loved ones. It's affecting lovers. It's affecting individuals, the social media people that are trying to look fake out there and paint another picture. As much as we don't feel they should do that, but that might be all they can do, and then that's also coming from somewhere. So all of us seeing different people coming together and understanding that this is a human issue really made me feel like, yes, there is actually progress going on, because now that means webinars and groups like this are coming together. And it's not just a medical thing anymore. It's a matter of, oh, this is affecting a friend of mine, or this is affecting me. So I just wanted to thank everybody for that. And if there's anything else that I'll just say piggyback on is, you know, everybody should just find a way to love themselves, find a way to understand yourself, love yourself, and keep growing. Because, you know, as we see the world changing, as we see digital transformation, industrial transformation, no matter what political side you're on, no matter what you know, parts of the fence you're on in any type of opinion or subject matter, you know, the more we get to love ourselves and understand ourselves truthfully, is the more we'll be able to show real good love to others, and that will make the world a much more loving place, right? Because everybody's really imposing their self-doubt and their self-unawareness and their self-depression onto the next person beside them, which now could cause a trigger that could lead to deaths, lead to people being killed, or lead to people going through parts of their life they don't need to. So I just wanted to say that, all right? And that's really just it for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. We really honor you and really appreciate you. And good night, everyone. And stay tuned for a recording in case you want to review this. Thank you so much and good night.
Thank you all.